I often get asked for my desert island most important exercises with kettlebells, and that often people are surprised that the Turkish get up is not in the list. Especially because they're especially surprised because I love doing Turkish get ups. Now, it's not in the list because it is a circus skill. It's not a core lift for strength. It's not a core lift for hypertrophy, certainly. It's not required for athleticism, and it's not the most efficient way to improve mobility. It's kind of an exhibition of strength and mobility. But that being said, I think it's a really good exercise. I think it's a fantastic exercise with lots of components of it that have massive crossover to other elements that are hugely important in your life. I just think that when push comes to shove, each of those elements, whether it's a lunge or holding something over your head or going from the ground to standing, each of those components can be trained, moving through rotations, can be trained with greater reward and lower risk profiles with other exercises selected. That being said, it is one of the most fundamental movements with a kettlebell, and it is really good fun. That caveat. If you find it fun, it's fun. Now, there's a huge amount of skill that goes into the Turkish get-up. And as a result, what you'll find is that when you start doing the Turkish get-up, it feels like a crazy coordination trick or like trying to learn choreography for a dance. And you are just trying to get through the choreography. And you'll get through the lift by just getting through the choreography. But as you progress the weights in this exercise, you'll come to realize that every single little position and even the moments where you move between positions carry with them a huge amount of technique, of balance, of nuanced understanding of where you are in relation to both the floor and the kettlebell and how you maintain tension between those 2 points. So it can be coached in a number of different ways. I should say before we keep going that if you don't enjoy the lift, leave it out. If you think it's too scary or too risky, leave it out. There's no problem by leaving it out. But what you should do, as I said to my wife many years ago, if you find the Turkish get-up boring and you want to leave it out, do me a favor. Break it down into its component parts and find a way to include perhaps a snatch to back lunge, because then you have the overhead lunge component of the Turkish get-up. Find a way to include the roll away to press onto your elbow into maybe an area where you're already on the floor or doing sit-ups or doing chest pressing, because that kind of rotation and shoulder stability is important. Find a way to go through a knee sweep, because that kind of mobility and stacking your shoulder under tension while it rotates is important. And if you do the contingent parts of the Turkish get-up, it can be done as part of other things in a way that's more engaging for you and less disruptive to the way that you train. So each of these components of the Turkish get-up, rolling away, pressing to the start position, rotating onto your elbow as you row the earth in, going to your hand, sweeping the foot underneath you, rocking your hip back onto your heel, windscreen wipering or stepping out to your half-kneeling position, crucially spreading the floor to standing rather than leaning forward into a lunge to stand, maintaining stacked position in the midpoint and then going all the way back down. Each of these elements can be trained individually or as a whole with the Turkish get-up. So what I've done is put together a little list of positions and things to think about as you do the Turkish get-up. I hope they've been helpful through this video, and if they have, you can always pause as you go and look at them in a little bit more detail. You never need to train the Turkish get-up heavy if it becomes a high risk and scary exercise for you. In fact, for many, many, many years, I only ever did the Turkish get-up with 20 kilograms, and I would go through very high volume sets and then try and go from high volume where I would break at the elbow and touch the floor to high volume sets where I wouldn't break at the elbow and treat it as kind of endurance or do it as part of a circuit. There are a ton of different ways to use this exercise, and I want to try and encourage you to engage with it in a way that makes sense to you. So take a look at these tabs. I hope they're helpful. And remember, if you want the full breakdown, just head over to my YouTube where things are done in a little bit more detail. I'll always do more videos on the Turkish get-up though, because people are always finding new troubles, new issues, and new problems with completing the movement. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. I hope this was helpful.